I'm here to be doing Joseph's proposition. It's about gun control. And his claim is that banning assault weapons in America will lower gun violence. And his secondary claims assault weapons contribute to gun violence. And assault weapons bans will have been effective in other countries. My claim is that gun violence will still continue after banning the assault weapons. And assault weapons is not the main contributor to gun violence. Banning assault weapons will not reduce crime rates in general. And people are blaming on the tools but not their users. And so to respond his secondary claim one, my claim is that assault weapons is not the main contributor to gun violence. In the FBI database, I look at the murder cases from 2009 to 2011, and most of the murders are not committed by assault weapons, but only 6%. And my opponent says that the assault weapon ban from 1994 to 2004 was effective, but this is not the case after I look at the database. And the murdering numbers were still the same. The murder cases and the percentage that is done by the assault weapons. Well, actually, they did have a slight reduction in percentage, but it's only 1%, 1 to 2% out of the 6%. So the weapon bans from 1994 to 2004 was ineffective in lowering the gun violence. Okay. So to respond his secondary claim two, which is assault weapon bans have been effective in other countries. My claim is that banning assault weapons will not reduce crime rate in general. Although there was a slight reduction in the assault weapon violence during the ban, there were still many ways and tools to commit crimes. From the same database, from the FBI, there were other ways to commit crimes besides firearms, and 30% of the cases were committed by knives and physical objects, and 5% are committed by bare hands. And that's the data from 2009 to 2011. And in one of Joseph's examples about the Japan having tight gun laws, and because people have limited access to firearms, people were often murdered by scissors more than guns. And so it brings up to a third point that people are actually blaming the objects but not focusing the human behavior that is causing these tragedies. So about 10 years ago, there was the Columbia High School shooting, which 2 teenagers murdered 12 students and 1 teacher at their school, but investigators later find out that the reason was not that they have guns, but they have psychological problems. And to summarize my refutation, the assault weapons is not the main contributor to the gun violence, and banning assault weapons will not lower crime rate in general, and it's, people are blaming the object instead of the users. Thank you.
Joseph, do you feel a little ganged up upon? We got two speeches on your speech here. That happened, I think, because somehow somebody didn't end up with the outline, and I gave out a second outline, so that's why that happened. I thought that, Ken, you did a good job identifying the claims that are being presented and trying to keep things structured. There's not as much analysis of the advocate's evidence and reasoning as there might be. I think you do a good job presenting counterclaims, and I think you do a very good job kind of giving the reasoning as to why your argument is valid. When you can see that there was a small decrease in the percentage of crimes that were committed with firearms, I think that you need to give that a little bit more context. Excuse me, not firearms, just assault weapons. I think you need to give that a little bit more context because it would be easy for somebody, let's say if Joseph was doing a response, to say, well, by his own acknowledgement, there was in fact a decrease. There could be arguments about causality, for instance, that would be worth introducing, or you could point out, for instance, that it is not statistically significant, that might, for example, fall within the range of variation that occurs in most years. For example, you could have looked at previous years before the assault weapons ban, whether it went up 1 or 2% in one direction or the other from year to year. So we don't really know what the causality on that argument is, and I think that that's the kind of challenge that you want to make on that argument. On the second point, there's a good general argument about how there's going to continue to be crime because there are other options available to people. I thought that you did an okay job pointing out that his own evidence says that, look, crimes in Japan, for instance, are frequently committed with scissors. That doesn't mean, so that, I'm not sure that the dead person is any happier that they're dead because they got scissors in the face than if they were shot to death. I think that there should be a little bit more analysis, though, about the frequency with which those crimes occur. And again, I think there might be some other counterclaims and context arguments on those comparisons that would be useful. Your last argument seems to suggest that there's a counter cause, and that is, in fact, psychological problems. If you had some information, or even take the examples, I think the Columbine example is a good one, but we have multiple examples where people have used assault weapons in the last couple of years, or things that have been described as being assault weapons, where all of the people involved have had some kind of psychological problem. So the argument ought to be that, that the source of the problem is their psychological issues. I think you've just got the one example of Columbine. I think it's a good example, but I think there are probably more, and it would be a little more substantive that way. All right, thank you.